Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2 1 2. Oh. Testing. Gonna have to try this. Testing 1 2 1 2. Let's see. Testing 1 2 1 2. Working out new encoding software here, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully we got a new VIP guest here. Some of you, most of you I would assume already know. Oh man. Brought to you by Sadar as always. Let's see, make sure we got all our ducks in a row here. Might be a little bit quiet right now. We're going to turn that on. Fix that real quick here. Here you go. Here we are, once again, whooping some butt, making it happen. Callers call in. People pay attention. We're all getting smarter. We're doing this day by day. Thank you for tuning in to Geezy Truth News. It is June 20th, 2020. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We got a VIP coming up. We should make some stuff happen here. Let's get it going. It really is incredible. Let's read off some headlines. Get some going. What do we have here? It is Saturday, ain't it? So the economy is on pause right now. But look. Here's a quote for the day. Quote, "No man deserves to be praised for his goodness unless he has strength of character to be wicked. All other goodness is generally nothing but indolence or impotence of will." End quote. By Francois de la Rochefoucauld. Okay, now back to business. Breaking news. Donald Trump's Tulsa rally is on. As Oklahoma Supreme Court rules it can go forward and mayor rescinds curfew order so president supporters can camp out. Incredible. Former president of Estonia responds to Russian claim on privilege under Soviet occupation. Interesting. Cop is charged with manslaughter a year after shooting dead a black man who was backing a truck into his own garage because he saw a gun in the vehicle. Stonehenge locked down for summer solstice. Security guards patrol monument to keep revelers away as Druids prepare to watch virtual sunrise. Interesting. Security guards were seen at 3000 BC Neolithic monument this morning. They are stationed there to ward off revelers attempting to get close to the site. It's the first time English Heritage has canceled summer solstice celebrations. Next. South Dakota's new meth campaign. Young woman is arrested over the killing of a police officer who was shot during a rampage in New Zealand. Gavin Newsom purchased $2 billion in mask. Wow, look at that. Two females thugs kick and stamp on woman's head, knocking her unconscious, breaking her nose and jaw. Where's the, what's going on? Remember, guys, end the Fed, end the pedogate. This is what we're all here for. I mean, what's more important than that? So that's what's, just no point in taking a look at the economy right now, but at the same time, so it did slide off down 208 points last night. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, so it looks like it's 25,871.46. Gold is at 1756. Oil's at 39. Pretty interesting. Main economic news. Here's what stock investors think is the biggest factor in their market strategy as coronavirus cases rise. We got T-minus 2 minutes till VIP. Let's see. Crypto's at 9,290 and 99 cents. So here we are. What else are we missing? Incredible. Stars gone haywire. Hubble telescope captures stunning images of the butterfly and jewel bug nebula in unprecedented detail. Where's the nitty gritty? Protesters in rally drag a Confederate soldier statue through the street and hang it from a sign, while Donald Trump slammed cops for letting demonstrators rip down and burn a monument to General Albert Pike in D.C. I mean, look, I read that they took down Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Christopher Columbus. I mean, you got, the first president of the United States having his statues taken down. I mean, we're hearing a lot of reports that there's going to be some news happening on the 4th of July. So we'll see and keep updated on all that. New York City Epstein prosecutor refuses to quit after Trump administration tries to fire him by press release. I mean, something's going on that's not being done, and so lots of things are being hidden from the public eye. We'll definitely have more experts come on the show and explain what is going on, and hopefully, here we go. Not wanting to be outdone by Seattle, Minneapolis is opening its parks to transients to create a city-sanctioned homeless encampment. So here we go. Okay. Hello, Hakeem. How are you doing?
You're tilted down a little bit. I can't hardly see you.
Yeah, there you go. I'll set you up as you won't be able to see me, but the viewers will see you. Is that all right with you?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. Are you ready whenever?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. We'll go on
By
one.
the way, my name's pronounced, everybody messes it up, but it's called Joachim.
Okay, Joachim Hagopian. Perfect. So on
Yeah.
three, we're gonna start. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, Joachim Hagopian, for coming on Geezy Truth News. It's a pleasure. It's been too long since we've talked. Former military, West Point graduate, PhD. Let me know if I get anything wrong. It's a pleasure and great to have you on the show.
Master's degree, not PhD.
Please lay it on us and let's hear your intel. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I was kind of programmed early in my life to follow in my father's footsteps, who was a war hero during World War II in the Korean War. He did submarines for 20 years in the U.S. Navy, and he indoctrinated me from a very early age to follow in his footsteps and serve my nation. So I was born a patriot, raised a patriot, and went off to West Point. And it was... I'm a military I'm a warrior, but not a military warrior. I found that out as soon as I got there, really. I'll just do a little diversion here. The military system is a brainwash system. They break you down, they call it beast barracks, where they just, insult the hell out of you, harass you, torture you, all the rest. And, it's a brainwashing process where they strip you down. These are all the, so-called high school athletes and the scholars from, they're studs in high school, but they get stripped down at West Point in the first few months and first year, really. And then they kind of build you back up according to a reward system where if you turn other cadets in for infractions, you get rewarded. And ain't that like the corporate world, the political world, the military world? It's all the academic world. It's all the same. It's all the same. There is a huge cabal that pretty much dominates and controls every nation on earth. And I learned firsthand there at the institution that produces all the generals that lose all the U.S. wars now. Since basically Korea, it was a stalemate, and supposedly we won World War II, but there's question mark even about that. So and then with every single war, by the way, 93% of the time that the United States has been a nation, we've been at war. So yeah, we're a warlike nation. We like aggression, and we want to be number one. So we have a military that the international cabal pretty much sends out there and starts wars for Israel, the Greater Israel Project. They want to basically change the borders of all the countries in the Middle East so that Israel's a lot bigger and stronger. And so America's been fighting Israel's wars for many years now, actually. Basically Israel owns the government. It's really outrageous. They have to sign forms pledging allegiance to Israel. Israel first. It's just insane. So anyway, I kind of divert in my conversation, and I'm like, a one talking machine. So jump in anywhere you want. But so I'll get back to the military. I really wasn't suited for the military because it's that brainwash process, and I'm an individual, and I cannot submit to the group mind and be controlled. And so I struggled. I ended up in a court case there, failure to allow due process of law. One of our Constitution rights that in the last, since the war on the Muslims, basically, war on terror, we don't have a Constitution anymore. But anyway, at one time, way back in the time I was at West Point, we did still uphold the U.S. constitutional right to due process. They ran my demerit total up in the last 2 weeks of a 6-month term. I ended up 5 demerits over because I had a mind of my own and spoke it. That was my crime. And so they ran up my demerit on a bunch of false demerits. And here's the institution where the cadets are not allowed to cheat or steal or tolerate those who do. Honor code. But the officers, they lie all the time through their teeth. And it was the time when we were still in Vietnam. And they were lying to the nation so we could win that war. And we were losing the war from the very start. And Kennedy got blown away because he was all set to, he already was bringing the special forces that were over there, basically the advisors. He was bringing the advisors home when they killed him. And he had no intention of having a dead-end, lost war in Vietnam. He kind of knew. His other downfall, by the way, I know I'm going off on another diversion here, but John Kennedy was the last president that really was for the people. He also was set to take away the power of the Federal Reserve to create dollars out of thin air, which they've been doing, since 1913, when they did federal income tax and the central bank. They brought the central bank, basically the Rothschild central banking system, which has enslaved the world the last couple of centuries, into the United States in 1913 through that act. It was on the night of the 23rd of December, the whole Congress that had a conscience went home for Christmas, and they both secretly voted it in. It's all, conspiratorial. They call us the conspiracy theorists, but, they meet behind closed doors and decide, what war is going to be next and when the economy is going to blow and when there's going to be a coronavirus that's going to hit the world, they make these decisions long in advance. Another diversion. There's a Rockefeller paper they discovered in 2010 that basically outlined the coronavirus agenda. It's all in advance, 10 years. It's just insane. So anyway, to make the long story longer, I clashed. They kicked me out. 5 committee demerits. They declared me deficient in military conduct because I had 5 committee demerits that were all false. They can lie, but we can't. So anyway, I took him to court. Failure to allow due process of law. Became the first cadet ever to challenge the West Point system and win in a court of law. So I changed history. They had to change their rules. And now there is due process where the cadet is allowed to present his side of the story and have witnesses testifying in his behalf, honoring the constitutional right to due process. So I did that. That was my first little mission as a young man. But, of course, then they require you to do 5 years afterwards. And, by the way, the Department of Navy called up West Point 4 days before graduation and said they don't want me. At that time, there was a rule whereby your father did 20 or more years in another branch of service. You could opt for that branch of service upon your graduation and be commissioned as a lieutenant or ensign, in my case, in the Navy. Well, they made an exception for me because of my court case. It made a few waves. New York Times ran articles, Time Magazine, UPI picked it up, went around the world for a couple of weeks. I had my 20 minutes of fame, Andy Warhol, we're all going to have 15 minutes of fame. So anyway, I managed to graduate, and I managed to extricate myself from a 5-year commitment and finally got out. But I had to hire another lawyer, of course, because they were going to give me a dishonorable discharge. But anyway, that's the long story. So after that, I eventually went back to school. I realized if I'm going to make something of myself, a bachelor's degree can't get me that far, especially if I want to specialize in something like therapy, psychology. So I went to school out in California, in Los Angeles, and got a master's degree in psychology and became a marriage family therapist. And I worked with the kids from the Department of Children and Family Services, which is the largest CPS system in the nation, largest county system in the entire country, working with kids in foster care and residential placements. And boy, that was an eye-opening experience. I saw firsthand where the children's court, the family courts, were not making the best decisions for the children. There were times where they would not allow me as the child's therapist into the courtroom. It's an insane closed system, and they make these decisions that put children at more risk of harm. And it happened over and over. I saw it over and over. So I went from fighting the military system in its insanity to fighting the child welfare system in its insanity. So anyway, I did that for many years because I found young kids to be a wonderful. They're honest. Kids are honest, and they know when an adult is bullshitting them or not. They know. And I worked with kids that were in probation, in foster care, residential placement, detention centers. I worked all the facilities for 27 years in mental health as a licensed marriage family therapist. And anyway, so that gave me my sensitivity to, and I worked with a lot of children who were pedophile victims. So it gave me a lot of understanding and sensitivity to the whole plight of children who are abused sexually, and tortured, and mind controlled, and murdered. Like I said, there is a cabal out there made up of the elite, and we're talking basically sexual blackmail system, where presidents, prime ministers, secretaries of state, secretaries of defense, all the cabinet, all the Congress people, all the parliaments people, not all. Of course, there's shades of gray, and there are probably a few good politicians in this world, not very many, because what I have found is that it's an inner club, and to join the inner club, you have to compromise and sell your soul to the devil, because it's basically the satanic system of the cabal. I use the term Luciferians. They're Luciferians. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about the Illuminati. We're talking about the high degree Knights of Malta, the Jesuit order, Freemasons, the high degree Freemasons. They're all in this little club where some of them are pedophiles and they get off. And they also get power. They have, the satanic ritual, the adrenochrome, all of the stuff. It's horrible. I mean, 5 years ago, if you brought this topic up, people would run away. They just were not prepared for the shocking reality that is the truth. And I've been working on this book. It's actually probably going to end up 5 books, because what I'm doing is creating the source book of modern pedophilia scandals on this earth since the 1980s on up to the present. And there's a lot, particularly in the Western world. The politicians are sexually blackmailed and they are controlled. They're compromised and controlled. And that's why we fight wars for Israel, Mossad. Well, okay, I'll get into the anatomy, basically, of this system, this cabal system that is run by pedophiles and pedophile enablers. Basically, they put gatekeepers in all the top positions, in law enforcement, the judiciary, the judges. Obviously, all the intelligence services are directly involved in coordinating these pedophile rings, the pedophile network, the global network. They're the coordinators. You might even call them pimps. The child welfare system plays a part in this too. They have gatekeepers at the top in the child welfare system that basically act as a funnel for the system that takes these kids out of their placements and sends them into harm's way, trafficking them to the cabal. So this is the system we're living in this world right now, in the 21st century. Mm-hmm. It's been going on for a long time. I mean, there's been child blood sacrifice in the ancient times, and I have a whole chapter on that. I can even go back to over 250,000 years ago with the Anunnakis. Yes, I believe that there are aliens, extraterrestrials, and that God is the creator of the whole universe, but the humans were created by the Anunnakis. And there's plenty of evidence, I have it in chapter 34, on the Anunnaki colonization of the earth, mining for gold. They use the white powder of the gold to repair their atmosphere on Nibiru, which is their home planet. Anyway, I go all over the landscape with the cabal system. I cover all the scandals in geographical order, but I also cover the Rothschild central banking system. I also have a whole chapter on the House of Windsor. Right now I'm working on the House of Orange, which is the Dutch royalty. I finished my last chapter on Belgium. They all have scandals, horrible scandals, where the royal families, if you want to look at who really pulls the strings, the puppet masters, we're talking really the European black nobility families that have been around since the ancient times. They're really behind this cabal as the movers and shakers. You don't even know half of the names. The big names that everybody knows about are the Rothschilds, obviously, and the Windsor family, the royal families of Europe, the Rockefellers in America. These are the families, but they're, Springmeyer, he wrote a book called The 13 Bloodlines, the Illuminati 13 Bloodlines, and really that's a book of truth. These ancient bloodlines have been in control for centuries actually, for a long, long time. And really, that's where I took it all the way back to the Anunnakis. These bloodlines are not completely human, okay? The reality is they want to keep the bloodline of the extraterrestrial, and so they do not marry all that much. All through the years, they have this strict code where you have to marry your cousin, sometimes uncles and nieces and stuff like that. I mean, it's really sick, but they've been, into incest for hundreds and hundreds of years. That's why so many of them are whacked out. We're talking royalty here. And these bloodlines, they're not all, some of them are CEOs and all of this. A lot of the presidents of the United States go back to Charlemagne, who ruled Europe back in 800. These bloodlines have been in control for a long, long time. And President FDR, Roosevelt, he said it. He said, presidents are not elected, they are chosen. And that's the way it's been, pretty much through the modern history of the United States anyway. And there's so many Freemason presidents, it's ridiculous. These secret societies behind closed doors make all these decisions that affect all the rest of us, include all the wars, all the major economic depressions, the recessions, the virus. This is all planned. I mean, they do these things. that virus most probably came from a lab, probably Fort Detrick, Maryland. That's where the biowarfare lab of the United States and the military is. But I've also read that the University of North Carolina is guilty of actually selling the coronavirus to China. So anyway, and there's so much out there and so much disinformation, it's really hard to decipher what's real and what's true. So anyway, getting back to this long story called the human history, what they've been telling us in the schools and the university, the higher you go in the education system, the more brainwashed you are, and the more invested you are in the system, because, it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of money to earn a PhD, so you're very invested. And those are the people that don't get it. They're part of the system, and, if you're going to make your money as part of a cabal crime system, you're going to rationalize. You're not going to deal with cognitive dissonance when somebody, tells you that you're part of this ugly system. You're not going to focus or process it at all. You're going to just call that person a conspiracy nut, which is a CIA invention, by the way, to discredit anybody who challenges the authority, false narrative on any kind of event. Started with the JFK assassination. People knew that that wasn't the lone gunman. They always go with a lone gunman. I find in the pedophilia scandals, they always have to isolate one person. It's the same theory, basically, of the lone gunman, except it's the lone wacko pedophile. In every chapter, every scandal, they isolate one person and blame it all on him, and he never operates in a system of network that's global. Never, 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 never. They just have to hide the truth. Every pedophile scandal has been covered up. Every single one of them. Now, before they completely cover it up, so there's no access and there's blackout on the media reporting about all of this, before that happens, at the very beginning, there's a tip of the iceberg amount of information, and that's what I go on. I'm writing volumes based on public domain information. It's already out there. All the fake news outlets like Washington Post and New York Times and CNN, they have covered most of these. CNN has been around since, I guess, the late 70s or whatever, but the other newspapers that have been around forever, they covered all these scandals. And so as much as I can, I use the mainstream news. Here's the irony. We who question the authority and the false narratives all the time, we know that the Washington Post and the New York Times and CNN are the propaganda ministries for the cabal, for the national corrupt governments. So they are really, in actuality, and more people are getting it all the time, they are the fake news. It's hard to find the truth, especially on the internet. There's so much out there, and they have paid shills that basically are on the alt news realm, where they're putting out disinformation and lies as well. So it's very difficult to try and figure out, in this truth-starved world we're living in, where the truth is. I'm not saying that I have, the whole thing on the truth. I do my best to footnote everything I say. When you're talking and naming people who are pedophiles that are running the countries, you better have a lot of footnotes backing you up. I do not talk out of my ass. I get as much documentation as I possibly can to pretty much, that my whole purpose of writing this is to, they've been in denial forever. That's how they do cover-ups. Oh, it never happened, it never happened, it never happened. There's no evidence. They always say that. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of evidence, and that's what this whole, 5-volume book is going to be. I've got 35 chapters. I'm finishing up 36 this week, and I probably will end up with about 42 chapters, maybe 43. I still have Australia and a couple of other places in Europe to go.
Wow.
But anyway, you have any questions, by the way, because I could go on all night on this monologue here. But
Please do. I mean, that's how I got a hold of you a few years back, is because, the people who start researching these subjects, you fall in a rabbit hole and it just keeps on going. And so we've been doing all this research. The biggest thing, I like, I wish we had solutions, this and that. I thank God there's people like you who are writing books, who are writing evidence, who are putting the proof down, because people like me try to explain to their friends, and then it's like, whoa, you're crazy, man. But the thing is Jeffrey Epstein was like a huge thing. That was like the most, that's the one case that I can think of that's the most recent thing. I mean, we could talk about Finders, we could talk about Franklin, we could talk about all kinds of, I'm well aware of most of the, pedophile scandals and all the disgusting shit that the cabal do and yada yada. But the Jeffrey Epstein thing, I really thought that was going to be the, because I thought Trump, I don't know what your view on Trump is, I'm more than happy to hear all your views on everything. But I thought Jeffrey Epstein was going to be the case, the knife in the chest. But man, that was so crazy. He disappeared in a flash. I think he's still alive. But nobody talks about him now. And now look what happened. Coronavirus, these protests. Oh my God, you can't make this stuff up, and it's like clockwork. So that's, so please continue.
Yeah, okay. Epstein basically is the eye-opening case for America. And it has tentacles, of course, globally. In Britain, he has Prince Andrew in his pocket, with sexual blackmail. That was a Mossad sexual blackmail system, and Epstein and Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, were Mossad agents. Her dad was a Mossad agent.
Yep.
He was a publisher and a big wheel in Britain, but he was also a crook and stole a bunch of money from people that worked all their lives in his company. He stole their money at the end, and he made demands supposedly on Israel, paying them a lot of money because he was doing a lot of spying. He also was part of the system that the backdoor technology. He also introduced this backdoor technology into the atomic plants in New Mexico. So all the secrets, basically, from the atomic research development in New Mexico was a backdoor, and Mossad had access to that. There's been so much deep hole discovery with the Epstein case, even after he, quote, died, which I also don't believe. And obviously, if he's not actually alive, and he actually is dead, well, obviously, the cabal that, all these, we all know, all the people that traveled on the Lolita Express and were vacationing in his Lolita sex slave island, did stuff in New York City with the Les Wexner mansion, the biggest real estate in New York City, was given to him, basically. Les Wexner, he's something else. He's part of the mega group. These are these multi-billionaire Jews that are some American, some are Israeli. And they basically, he did a white paper for the federal government that basically was all about fighting the war in Iraq. These are the policymakers behind closed doors. They have all these secret deals. And Whitney Webb she's a hell of a journalist. I really respect her. She's done so much great work on the Epstein case just in the last year and a half. So she's the best source for actually all the newer information coming out about the Epstein case. She has it. I use her as a footnote all the time. Well, I haven't really upgraded, but anyway, I got a bunch of links of hers that I'm going to upgrade up my chapter. I was about the first one. Well, the Miami Herald journalist, there's another one. I can't remember her name offhand, but she also was with it from the very, very beginning in 2005 when he first was in the media.
Right.
In 2006, he got busted. And anyway, Prince Andrew, they're all in it together. And basically, that gets into the whole thing of this technology that's being shared. They're actually moving the tech industry is moving out of Silicon Valley and it's going to Israel. They're getting backdoor access to basically weapons and basically our privacy. It's out of hand. And Robert Maxwell was a big part of that little deal. And so his daughter just carried on in his footsteps. She was the apple of his eye, and so he taught her all the trade secrets of being a spy, and she got basically Epstein in it. They met in the late 80s, and they've been at it, for, probably, Les Wexner got him started, gave him billions, They say, he was like a money manager and all this kind of crap,
right.
No, he had one client, Les Wexner, his beneficiary. We gave him all the money in the world, billions basically, to get this startup with the sexual blackmail system for Mossad. And so, where that case is going, I think pretty much our Attorney General, his father was at the school that hired him. Here the guy quit college, wasn't even a college graduate, and he got, so it was a very, he was like 21 or something, and a college dropout, and they hired him for this exclusive uppity school in Manhattan. That's where he got his start, and from there, because all the rich bankers and CEOs send their kids to this school, so he went straight from there, and on and on. So, yeah, he was working for the cabal, basically, and got all the dirt on everybody, which is, basically all the scandals, that's what they're about. There's two components, basically. One is, yes, there are sick pedophiles. Yes, there are satanic ritual, torture, mind control people that drink the adrenochrome blood, eat the organs, all of this, all the horror. Yes, there are these people. That's another thing. The conspiracy theorists, when you talk about satanic ritual abuse, it's so much BS to just negate it. It's ridiculous. That's why I'm writing this book, because I'm putting it out there. It's all true. So anyway, that's the scandal that really goes deep into how the world operates, is the Epstein scandal. And unfortunately, it does look like, his people might get away with it. Now, I will talk about Trump. Trump is the first president that's even said the word pedophilia to the public.
Wow.
Back, 5 years or so before he became president, I think 2015, I think, or something like that. Several years before he became president, he actually did Twitter and said, "Oh, we got to get rid of these pedophiles. They're sick. We got to kill them." He said that, and before he ran for president, several years before, and within the first probably 6 months, there were more arrests of pedophiles around the world than any previous president. So,
that's right.
And then we hear about these sealed indictments, the Bush family and Clintons and all these, war criminals and cabal puppets that did these horrible, horrible things, breaking the law here and there and everywhere, and doing horrible things to children. We hear about it for what? The first year he got elected, we've been hearing about it. So I think he's compromised, I'm afraid. Well, you can't be president unless you are compromised. That's the system. And he was the best buddy of Jeffrey Epstein.
Exactly.
That's a fact. He was in New York Magazine saying, "Oh yeah, he's my buddy. Oh, he loves the young ones."
Yep.
Wink, wink. So he knew what was going on back then with Epstein. So unfortunately, I do think he's compromised, but I also think maybe he is trying to. I think maybe. I don't know whether it's wishful thinking and hope like that or reality. I don't know. I want to see some arrests. I mean, they've been talking about the sealed indictments for 3 or 4 years now.
Exactly.
So I want to see some arrests. And, I know, you always hear the apologists and all this type that are still supporting them, say, you've got to move slow, the swamp is deep, and,
right.
You can't go in there gangbusters or they'll kill you just like they did JFK, the last guy that tried to make major changes. So I get that. But as far as Israel and the Zionists, I think they control him. I don't see him branching out and being independent of Zionists that are in large part controlling the world. It's a combination of Illuminati, Freemasonry, Malta Knights, the Catholic Church is involved, and Zionists. It's an amalgamation of this power structure behind all the physical structures of government, political, economy, all of it. And they're ruling the earth. And, there's that expression, I don't even know where it came from, maybe even the Bible, but the devil's dominion is the earth. That's what we hear. That's the word that has been passed down, maybe in the Bible, I'm not sure, but I think it's true. And I think to be part of the inner club, you have to be either a gatekeeping, compromised person that is going to protect the system by not exposing what they're doing to children, or you're dead if you do, or you're one of them that actually gets off on doing these horrible things. And of course, they have the blackmail system where they get people drunk or give them drugs in their drinks and stuff like that, and then they wake up with a child in their bed, and it's all on film. That's what the Epstein operation was about, and every other scandal too. And basically, this is the intelligence community doing this. This is CIA, Mossad, MI6. All the intelligence services have their operations going for sexual blackmail with children. They used to do it in the 50s with hot babes that would be, the honey trap,
Mm-hmm.
But then they realized, adultery, it's not to most of the world anyway, in this day and age, it's not going to bring down somebody if they are found out cheating on their wife. But if they're doing stuff to kids, okay, that's a different story, and that person's not going to stay a president if that gets exposed. So anyway, it's been a blackmail system now with children since really the 70s. It really shifted over at that time. And so you're either compromised in that way and decided that, you're in it and they control you and you don't want to die, so you just do what you're told. And that's a lot of the people in power right now, the puppets in power, in all the governments. Or you're actually a bona fide pedophile that gets his jollies up doing these horrible things to children. And probably a Luciferian that goes through all the ritual stuff, the eyes wide shut, scenario with occult rituals that have been handed down since, all through the ages. They do these occult rituals where they call upon basically interdimensional forces, and they actually are empowered by it, by drinking the blood. It rejuvenates their cells. They stay young, with all the, the transhumanism and the nanotechnology and all of this, they're planning to live forever, and they're making humans obsolete. That's why, they create these viruses to try and, this is not doing a very good job, though, because it's like, in every nation there's about 1% or something that die from it.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is the ugly world that we're living in, controlled by Luciferians, and I'm basically documenting it all so that people can't just discard you as a conspiracy nut and not hear you, because it's all laid out, documented, back.
Perfect. What do you think about, have you been following that QAnon thing?
Well, I kind of have mixed feelings about him. No, I don't follow him every day. I check in occasionally. I understand that the guy has, or guys, whoever it is, has made predictions, or he talks in riddles, kind of, and then interpreters. He's got a whole network of interpreters that follow his every word, and I read that, there are predictions he's made that have come true, so they do believe that he is for real, and he's on the inner circle of Trump, and he's his intelligence circle getting out there indirectly, Trump's, spokesman type thing. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something to it. He has obviously, the acute phenomenon has addressed pedophilia. I mean, it's been talked about quite often.
Exactly.
And that more and more people are realizing how extensive this system is with what they're doing to kids. 8 million kids are estimated every year disappearing off the earth, and many of them are murdered. And in this system, as human slaves being trafficked around the world, they often will go to Asia and traffic a lot of kids from Asia, Africa, South America, and they bring them to Europe, North America, and Australia, these Western nations. They're pretty much all controlled completely by this satanic system of sexual blackmail with children, and it's a major operation. There are private contracting companies that are massive. Serco is one of them. They're in communications, they're in the spy network, they're in education, they're in transportation. They're a huge company, and they operate globally, contracting with all the countries, the intelligence services, and all the major corporations in all the countries. And they're a big part of this global trafficking network. Serco, SERCO, is the name of the company. And they're a big part of it. So it's a combination of the elite that they're compromising through sexual blackmail, the intelligence services that are the coordinators, and some you might even call them pimps, that are sending, and the there's always procurers, and you can also call them pimps. And the procurers tend to be the ones that get caught. Like Savile, he was a procurer for the MI5 and MI6. He had his hand in every aspect of British life, from the charities with children. He was the number one charity guy for kids causes. He ran the state mental institution. They gave him the keys to all the institutions, and he himself would make statements where he said, I operate undercover and I get the job done. He went to Israel. He's talked to the Knesset there. He was a consultant with the prime ministers of Israel. He's made many trips there. And he says, you know, I'm the biggest Catholic Jew that you ever seen. And so he was set up also by MI5, MI6, the intelligence services of Britain, to actually be the child procurer. And of course, he holidayed for something like 11 Christmas year-end holidays with Margaret Thatcher in the 80s, 11 in a row, supposedly. He was the best friend of Prince Charles. He was the confidant and marriage counselor for Diana and Charles when they weren't getting along. He was the operator that put it all together and made sure that the most powerful people in Britain had children. And of course, he helped himself as a prolific over thousands of cases. And of course, he also was into screwing dead bodies too. He was a real sicko. But yeah, I mean, you can go to every scandal, and there's this one person that gets caught that's isolated as the bad, weird guy, and then the rest of all the VIPs from the governments and CEOs and bankers and all of those types that are indulging in this horrible practice, they all go to their graves, never spending a time in jail, never being questioned by the police. It's universal. There's been never anybody of stature. Now, the highest one to go to jail over it, technically it wasn't for his pedophilia. That played a part in the sentencing. But what's his name? I forgot his name. Hather or something. The Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert.
Oh,
that's it. Republican.
Right.
He was a wrestling coach, and he did a lot of young men in their teens as a pedophile, and then he got exposed. And but he was they got him for money fraud, but the judge learned, because the witness was one of his victims, and so he learned about his pedophilia, and so he got, I don't know, maybe 2 years or something like that. He did not go to jail, though, for his pedophilia. And that's about the highest, because, you know, the Speaker of the House is like the third person in line as president, so that's pretty high.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for pedophilia.
When was that?
Nobody that's been part of the network, the global pedophilia VIP cabal network, nobody that's of Congress level, Parliament level, ministerial level, president or prime minister level, royalty level, nobody in the history of humankind has ever spent one day in jail for all their crimes committed over a whole lifetime. Then they die and move on, and the next generation comes up and fills it in, and they're doing the same thing. And no one, they might get caught, they might get blamed. What happens is the victims that actually speak out, they die mysteriously.
Yeah.
We know they're suicided, quote, suicided. They're murdered because they're a threat to the VIPs, so they easily get rid of them. I'll tell you, the organized crime works together with the government, with the intelligence services, with the top corporation CEOs, with all the top bankers, the IMF, the World Bank. It's a cabal.
No doubt.
And we're all slaves. It's an enslavement system based on usury, charging, interest on made-up paper money, fiat money that has of no value. It's gone down since the 1913 Act to 2 cents what it's was worth when it first was enacted, because the power was handed over from the Treasury, and that's what JFK was going to change. He was going to revert it back to the responsibility of the U.S. Treasury, which is the way the Constitution was set up, to being in control of the money supply. And of course, we also went off the gold standard with Nixon era, and introduced the petrodollar. The petrodollar, the U.S. dollar, as the international currency, slowly over the last 5 years is being less used. There's more and more nations that are actually using other currencies for Bitcoin type currency,
right.
and other currencies other than the U.S. dollar. So
That's
when
right.
that is completed, it's going to impact American economy, that's for sure. It's going to have a global impact too. But I mean, with this whole coronavirus, the design is that they're breaking down the world economy, and basically the mid-level and small businesses of this world, they don't have the kind of billions of dollars to stay in business, so they're going under. And then these stimulus checks and all that, that's all paper money, the Federal Reserve makes, it's keeping a few people afloat for maybe a month or something like that, but we haven't seen half of it as far as its impact economically on the standard of living for the average American, the average anybody all over the world. It's a global thing. We haven't seen the ultimate consequence with the supply chain shutdowns, where there's less shipping, there's less products being shipped around the world. Obviously, the China products that pumped in through the Walton's, the Walton's outfit, those stores. Everything's changed now, where we're seeing that there's been a monopoly forever, but we're seeing that now that the only survivors of this economic crisis are the internationalists, basically the globalists, they're called now. They have the resources to survive it, but everybody else is not going to survive. And so we're all going to become dependent on the government to stay alive, and many will not stay alive. So I don't know. I have friends that, like Robert David Steele and a few others that believe that the good guys are winning, and I always say, seeing is believing. So I'm waiting for those indictments. I'm waiting for the swamp, a tangible evidence of the swamp getting cleaned. I haven't seen it enough anyway. I haven't, to be convinced that the good guys are winning. I'm not convinced of that yet. I hope to God, for all of our sake, that there are positive forces. I mean, some of my friends talk about the Pentagon pedophilia task force, that's supposedly going around to these deep underground military bases, the domes out there, and they're blowing them up and they're rescuing the kids and all that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know whether that's disinformation or real. I don't know. I hope to God it's real. I hope that there are good forces military forces that are out there that are actually rescuing kids. But like I say, seeing is believing. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. And seeing is believing, and we'll see. The recent update in terms of the Federal Reserve, did you read? What do you think about what recently happened? Something about Steve Mnuchin, the Federal Reserve joining the Treasury or something like that. It was like a month ago. Do you recall that happening? He's like combining something.
Yeah, I read a little blurb about that.
That should have been like a big deal or something.
He's a Goldman Sachs guy. I mean, he's part of the Rothschild banking system. Trump hired a whole bunch of those guys actually.
Yeah.
As his advisors. So they realized that their system is bankrupted. They realize that, and then they purposely have bankrupted the whole economy. So you better believe that they have something in it for them already in place that they're going to implement. And so that's, I think, part of that process. They figured it out, how they're going to still get their cut and control the world still. So I'm not really all that optimistic that whatever is being replaced is going to be a better system. I am not convinced of that, because unfortunately we still have the Rothschild agents in control.
Right, it's just like the stock market. It can either go up or down. Because that's what when I first read that article, I was like, I was talking to other friends, and they're like, "Oh, this is a good thing." The Treasury is hopefully going to take down the Federal Reserve, yada yada. And it's like, that sounds great. We'll hear it. Well, guess what? It's been a month, and if not more, and not a word. No one's hearing about it. But and again, like you're saying, seeing is believing. It's time to make some action. All this draining of the swamp, all this talk, it's time to walk the walk. And hopefully we have more whistleblowers like Kevin Shipp. I don't know if you're familiar with that guy, but when I found out about him,
guy, he's very good.
Yeah, and I was hoping more. It's like we just need more whistleblowers to be like, look, it's like, because here's the thing, the cat's out of the bag. Like you mentioned earlier, 5-10 years ago, if I would have mentioned all this stuff, I mean, I would have been put into an institution. People would be like, you're out of whack. But now, like, nobody heard of Rothschild 10 years ago. Like, small amount of people. Now, most people you talk to, oh yeah, they know about him. The cat's out of the bag. People are waking up. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. So I think the good guys are winning. Because look, looking down, there's no, like Einstein said, you could look up and you could look down. I choose to look up. So there's no point in it's like we got to be optimistic. The good guys are winning.
The glass is half full.
Exactly. So we're winning, Joachim.
One thing I will say, just as you alluded to, more and more people are waking up every single day to realizing that it's been a scam, that there is these a handful of controllers of this earth that have been operating for a long time and not in our interests. And people have drawn the conclusion that the pedophilia, the wars, the economy, it's all controlled by a cabal, and they're all criminals and war criminals, and we need to hold them accountable for what they've done.
Yep.
And, we have the technology to be able to determine. My ex-CIA friend Robert David Steele has said between him and his NSA friend, who's well known, and the name is offhand, I don't know, but anyway, we have the technology to be able to round up these people that are at the top of the cabal that are doing these things to everyone. And I believe in truth and reconciliation commissions, where we do not, basically we allow the low-level people to speak honestly about what's going on with the people that are controlling their strings. And if they give the information to the about the controllers so that we are able to hold the controllers accountable, then they are not punished. That's the way we get to the truth. And I'm really optimistic that as we turn the corner, as the basically the critical mass is reached amongst the masses in believing that this is all going on, knowing it's all going on, that there will be truth and reconciliation commissions, and we will be determining through our technologies, NSA and the rest of it, who these culprits are that are pulling all the strings to the cabal, and we're going to be able to strip them of their assets, put them in, try them, in court of law, you're innocent until proven guilty, and then hold them accountable. But with the money and the resources they have that we will strip them of, we can transform this earth. We can, instead of the ecocide that's been created over the last century through the pollution and the toxic levels and the geoengineering and the fluoride in the water and the brainwash and the propaganda and all of this, we can turn it all around. I think in a relative short time, if we hold those at the top accountable. And I'm optimistic that can happen. I just, obviously, that we don't know when, and we're waiting. But yeah, there's so much evidence out there. It's time for action now to hold them accountable.
That's exactly right, Joachim. I appreciate so much that you came on the show, that we got to talk and talk about all these things. Any last comments, thoughts? What people check out?
Well, I will do a little plug. I have my own blog site.
Exactly. There you
called empireexposed.blogspot.com. You can find all my chapters, all my interviews, all of that. I even did a recent article for Global Research on George Floyd. I've been on the sidelines, writing this monster for almost 3.5 years now. And I used to, contribute all the time. Every 3 or 4 days I'd write another article for Global Research and SOT.net. I got a lot of articles on there, and Lou Rockwell. Very good news outlets on the internet. And I really miss that, because you work maybe 2 or 3 or 4 days and the article's done. Well, anyway, when the Floyd thing and the rioting and all of this, I just felt like the Rome is burning, and I have to, put my 2 cents in there. So I wrote an article and sent it to Global Research. But anyway, so those are the places where you can find my older work that go back now half of a dozen years now. I've been into journalism, and then my blog site, and then on Robert David Steele's site called PhiBetaIota.net. That's also where you can get my chapters for free. And then if you wish to get it off Amazon, I'm selling by chapter on Amazon. All of them, except for maybe the last couple, are only 99 cents, and then the other ones are a little bit more than that more recently. And so those are the different venues that you can find my work. And I guess my last thought is that it is our responsibility as adults to take care of our children. We have been asleep at the wheel for too long, and we have not done a very good job taking care of our children. And now that we have the information, the cabal has kept us blind for way too long. But we're not blind anymore. We have the information, we have the evidence, we have the documentation. Now it is time to become activists so that we make sure that we do reach critical mass, where we do end up with the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions to ferret out who's running the cabal network, and then hold them accountable. And when we do that, we can transform this earth into the paradise that God, I believe, originally intended for the human population to live in. We have it within our power, but it requires education and spreading the word and activism for it to happen. We cannot sit on the sidelines and be passive or feel impotent. Oh, I'm just one person, I can't do anything. No, that's a cop-out. You have to make sure that there are more and more of us that do get it, that reach critical mass, and we can make things happen. And so that's my final thought. As a human family, it is our responsibility to take care of our own, and we haven't done a good job. Well, now we know what we're up against to change it so that we do take better care of our children. And in that process, we can change this whole world around to an economic system that is not a usury, debt-based slavery system that the Rothschilds and et al. Created for us, but a system whereby you can reach your God-given potential and be able to be a contributor to society. And the best part of being a human comes out when we're helping other people. So this is our future if we choose to make it happen. And we must choose to make it happen. If the human species is going to survive, we must do this. It's not even about being altruistic. It's about survival, because there right now is a human genocide going on. And we must stop it. And we must hold them accountable so that we can evolve. They've hijacked our human species, and we're in a genocide now. To evolve spiritually and physically, we must take action, and that requires all of us to do our part. There's my speech.
I can't thank you enough, Joachim. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure, Sean.
Yeah, I found you through veteranstoday.com or something like that. I don't even know if I'm sure the website's still around, but that's when I found you out many years, like 5 years ago. And, so here we are still fighting the good fight. Please keep in touch. Please come on the show more often. Looking forward to your book coming out, and empireexposed.blogspot.com.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and the title of the book, Pedophilia and Empire, Satan, Sodomy, and the Deep State.
Great. All right, Joachim, till next time. Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, that was Joachim, everybody. That was amazing. So please check out his new stuff. Check out his website. Check out his blogspot. That was the download for today. So keep in touch. Everybody, do their thing. You know how it goes. So God bless everybody. Take care. Till next time.